Welcome to the Multifamily Collective. I have a topic that is probably near and dear to my heart because it has to do with people. It's very people oriented, human capital oriented, and it really is under the premise of hiring. How do you do good hiring? And many years ago, I can't remember what year it was. There was a book written by uh, Dr. Smart, I believe. I can't remember the gentleman's first name, but the title of the book was Topgrading, and literally the book was at least this thick. Now the book included tools and worksheets and other things related to the hiring process, and the top grading formula became very successful, if I recall correctly, in the GE Corporation, and it really was a very comprehensive way of looking at a person's background from a lot of different perspectives. And it walked through this very thorough process of uh, attracting prospects to your organization, vetting those prospects to include background checks, but also calling the referrals, or references rather, calling all references, calling the if you call a supervisor, you're also calling the supervisor's supervisor in this process. And you're just going through this very comprehensive process of identifying very good talent for your organization. It also included panel interviews where you sat in a room with 4 or 5 people on one side of the table, all armed with questions that were behavioral based. Some of them were motivational based. And you're firing questions at this individual. You're almost creating an environment that is very full of stress, and you're doing that on purpose because you want to see how that person operates in that type of environment. If I'm not conflating things, there's also this element in that book that that talked about, or there was a part of that book that talked about taking that individual out to a restaurant and actually asking the waiter to mess the order up on purpose to see how that person responded, or putting them in manufacturing events like that, if that's not the precise example that I'm thinking of, but manufacturing things like that. How do they treat the receptionist? The receptionist is part of the hiring process. How did this individual treat that person? Because that person's feedback is important in the hiring decision. So anyway, long story short, if you actually did top grading, the way that top grading was designed, it would take you multiple meetings also. It would take you the better part of 2 weeks, plus or minus. Maybe it takes you a week if you do it every day. And imagine you're taking multiple people through this process, and they're being eliminated along the way in the process. But if you do it right, you're 2 to 3 weeks in a process to get somebody hired into your organization. And the idea was that you do some variation of this at every single level in your organization. So you're taking, in our industry, you're taking maintenance technicians, leasing consultants, groundskeepers, cleaners, painters, etc., through the same sort of process that's very lengthy in nature and really does require all people that are in the equation to chime in, to actually be a part and participate in it. And there are people out there in the world today that think, and I don't know where I fall on this sort of spectrum of opinions about this, but that think somebody that's going to, an organization is going to put somebody through that many reps to get to be a part of an organization is overkill, too much, and they'll be put off by it. There are other people who, like, if you're somebody going through that process, you either, one, appreciate it and you understand and you love the fact that they're very thorough and they're going to choose the right people, because that tells you that there are very quality people working in the organization if they've all had to go through some version of this process. The other thing is that you're not interested in it, because that's a lot of work to have to go through multiple. You have to take a lot of time off of work if you have a current position, or you have to spend a lot of time with that one organization going through a process that you might ultimately be let down from because you didn't make it through. And that could be off-putting to a lot of people. And on the hiring side, there are a lot of people out there in the world that would suggest that going through a process like that is just too much time spent. It's time sunk. We don't have the resource. We need somebody that can actually breathe on a mirror and then go to work tomorrow. By the way, we need to hand them the keys and they need to just figure it out because we don't really have time to train them, etc. And so I'm curious what you might think, what the community thinks about the process in and of itself. I mean, right now in the multifamily space, especially on the service side of the business, we have a hard time identifying people. There are a dearth of individuals coming into the space who are qualified to do service tech work. The feeders for our industry aren't really that robust, or they're non-existent. The work itself in the world today, where there are many other alternatives to what a maintenance technician might do, we compete with a very broad pool of options that look much more attractive than doing service work. So the idea of running somebody through a very thorough process when you're competing against all these different variations of offerings and opportunities seems like overkill. But in the same respect, you want to get the right person into your organization, so you do want to put them through some process. So, and then I'm kind of curious, like, what do you think about that? But I'm also curious, if you're a candidate and you're of the mind that you need to go through a process very quickly because you've got a resume, you've got references, you've got a good social media presence with a giant network of things aback of you, so you feel entitled to just potentially fall into any position that might be presented. It's like you think you can just choose the opportunities and you're going to get the position. And in the case where you do very quickly, does that concern you? Does it bother you? I think I would be concerned by that. But that's one guy's opinion, right? I would want to go through a pretty healthy process to get onboarded into an organization, because it tells me that organization cares about who they're bringing into the culture, and they care about their culture. So anyway, love to hear your thoughts on any number of things that I said there. Talk to you soon, or talk to you later.